Hey guys, so today what we're going to be looking at is the wrestling ABCs. And I'm saying, what are the wrestling ABCs? Well, this is the most important wrestling term for each letter. Now, most of the definitions I'm using are from Wikipedia, so they may be a little off, but I edited a few of them to make a little more sense. So each one is going to take about a minute to explain. All right, first up we have A is for angle. An angle is a storyline. It's when X is feuding with Y, or Z is teaming with A, and different storylines sometimes can interact, they can break apart, and it's a branch of sorts that you can connect any one storyline to a different storyline years later. Next up we have B for bump. This is when a wrestler will take a move onto the ground, turnbuckle, the mat, and it's the impact that they take from that move. For example, Eddie Guerrero here, he is taking a bump. He is landing and he will hit his knees and his arms as not to hurt Booker T, who is on the ground here. Next, we have C is for champion's advantage. This is when, in a championship match, the champion will not lose their title if they're out of the ring for 10 seconds or if they get disqualified. That means hitting someone with a weapon if they're not allowed to. Now, the champion's advantage doesn't really apply in no disqualification matches because there's no disqualifications. However, in most championship matches, it is in play. Next, for D, we have dark matches. These are matches that happen after a show has gone off the air. SmackDown has just ended here, and so these wrestlers, let's see, Jinder Mahal, Rusev, Randy Orton, Shinsuke Nakamura, I think AJ Styles is in there, will all have a match against one another. This is a tag match to entertain the live crowd and give them something that the TV audience won't see. Next up, we have an enhancement talent, also known as a jobber. This is somebody who will come in to get beaten up and then they leave. Sometimes they'll come back just to get beaten up over and over and over again, but normally it's a one-off appearance. Sometimes it can be local talent as well. Next, we have a face. This is the good guy. This is the guy you want to root for. John Cena, for example, for the majority of his career has been a face. A face, once again, it's the guy who displays the good characteristics, integrity, grit, honesty, stuff like that. Next, we have a gimmick. So this is the character that a wrestler will portray. So the Big Boss Man, for example, portrays a cop gimmick for the majority of his career. Gimmicks can also count for different events, such as Hell in a Cell, Money in the Bank, stuff like that. Next, we have a heel, the opposite of a face. These are the bad guys, the guys you want to hate. For most of his career, Vince McMahon was a heel. These people show negative traits like lying, cheating, and stealing, and will normally compete against the faces. All right, next up we have I for indie promotion. So these are smaller promotions that aren't national. Maybe you probably have a couple local ones wherever you're watching this from. These are very small, maybe can have 20 to 30 wrestlers, if that. All right, next up we have to job. Now, this definition is a little iffy. Normally, to job is to lose a wrestling match in great fashion. So normally, it's a quick match and you don't get any offense in, basically. So this is an example of John Cena beating Baron Corbin. Next, we have kayfabe. This is the professional wrestling world out of reality. Like, it's the idea that all of it is real. There's no script. This is just off the fly. Obviously that's not true, but an example of someone breaking kayfabe was a couple years back when Roman Reigns revealed his leukemia diagnosis and relinquished the Universal title. Next up, we have Lucha Libre. This is a Mexican style of professional wrestling, and there are some Lucha Libre wrestlers in almost every promotion, American, British, Japanese, whatever. Normally, these people are high flyers, quick strikes, holds, stuff like that. All right, next up we have managers. These are people who team up with another wrestler or group of wrestlers to give them a voice. Let's say Omos and MVP are a group right now. Omos isn't very good on the microphone, although he is good at everything else. So MVP is his voice, and he is his manager. So he will talk for him, he will interfere in matches, stuff like that. All right, next up we have a near fall. This is when somebody kicks out right before it's the 3 count. 1, 2, oh, he just kicked out. Something like that. This is a way to build tension in a match, normally a major one. Next up we have someone being over. Over means that if you're a good guy, people really, really like you. And if you're a bad guy, people really, really hate you. So this is an example at WrestleMania 30 when Daniel Bryan was so over that he was given the WWE title. It was a big moment for him, He started out as an enhancement talent way back when. He was a member of the Nexus when it originally debuted, but eventually got over enough to win the WWE title, and he did it multiple times. All right, next up we have a promo. This is when somebody gets a microphone and maybe they're doing an interview. Normally this will happen in the ring or backstage, and they'll talk with somebody or talk to somebody and say, this is what happened on Raw last week. I don't like that. At the pay-per-view coming up, this is going to happen. Stuff like that. They're cutting something on someone about something. I just won this title. Nobody can beat me. Somebody can interrupt them. Stuff like that. Q does not have any major terms. R is for a run-in. Now, I couldn't find a good example for a picture, so I'm using this referee GIF here. GIF, whatever. This is when somebody during a match will run in from outside, can be from backstage, around the ring, whatever. And they run in, they interfere in the match, cause a disqualification if disqualifications are allowed. Normally, heels will do this to beat down somebody. All right, next up, we have to sell. This is when you make a piece of offense look deadly. If I get hit with an RKO, I'm going to make it look like I've just been hit with an RKO or I've been concussed, because that's basically what the RKO does. So I want to sell it as best I can. So here's an example of Chris Masters making John Cena's submission look really good when it isn't a very good move. All right, next up we have a turn. This is when somebody who's a good guy becomes a bad guy, or when somebody who's a bad guy becomes a good guy. So Big Show was infamous for that. He did it a gazillion times during his career. Sometimes that can be instant, or it can be a slow burn, like Drew McIntyre's right now. Next up, we have a unification. It's pretty simple. That's when 2 championships unified. Next up, we have a valet, normally a female, who accompanies a wrestler to the ring. Normally is, at minimum, their on-screen girlfriend. In this case, Sharmell was the wife of Booker T. But normally they'll just annoy the crowd, maybe cut a promo or two, and possibly interfere in the match. Next, we have W. This is for work. Now, there are 3 different terms for work, and they are an event that is planned to happen, like Kofi Kingston winning the title, to attack one body part for a match, like, working the arm, working the leg, the stomach, whatever, or to tease, manipulate the audience so they do a specific thing. Like, an example of that would be, this is my friend Gene. Say hello. Hi, Gene. Ha ha ha. You're supposed to be good hygiene and stuff. That's an example. I use this picture because Big E and Xavier Woods were not told Kofi was winning. They were told Daniel Bryan was going to win. So when he won, their reactions were what's called a shoot, which is when somebody does something that's off script or non-scripted at all. There can be things like a worked shoot, like the pipe bomb promo. This was a worked shoot. But a shoot is normally out of the blue, a fight or something like that. I did a video on that a couple days ago. All right, next up we have the X signal. I couldn't really find anything good here, pictures or otherwise. So this is, somebody's been injured, kayfabe or shoot. They'll put up this X and they'll say, hey, this person is really hurt. They can't compete anymore. Help them out. Now, an example of a kayfabe one is when Rey Mysterio was injured and then the Big Show attacked him and smacked him into a post. But an example of it actually happening with Shane McMahon at this year's WrestleMania. He blew out his quad and had to be carted. He had to be helped off. And it was annoying. It was disappointing. But it happens in this business. All right, second to last, we have a young boy. This is a Japanese professional wrestling term. This is a term for a newer talent. This is an example I found. They might appear on TV, but they're lower card or squash talent. And lastly, we have a Zabata. I was on the Wikipedia page for WW professional wrestling terminology. This is the only word they had, so I don't even know what it is. I'm just going to use this as an example, I guess. So this is something that, when it appears, will fill in a major hole in an angle. For example, who run over Stone Cold Steve Austin? Like, who is it that will fill in, the angle here? But I use this picture of Mitch from the Dean Ambrose Chris Jericho storyline because Mitch is funny. So those are all of the A to Z professional wrestling terms that you need to know if you want to know professional wrestling. Now, there are obviously a few more terms, like multiple for different letters, but I will have to go over those in a later video. Make sure to like, subscribe, do whatever you want. I don't really care, as long as it's good. Have a good day, good evening, good night, good morning, good dawn, good dusk, and goodbye.